Welcome to Breakaway, the minor hockey podcast, brought to you by the OMHA. I'm your host, Aaron Wilbur, founder of the Coaches Site. As always, I am joined by the OMHA's Executive Director, Ian Taylor. And back again is Mike Dundas, the Manager of Hockey Development for the OMHA. Gentlemen, how you doing?
Awesome. I'm looking forward to this today. This is our check-in. I don't know if it's the quarter poll, but I'm going to call it that. And I know we had Mike on before, so he did a good enough job that we had him back. That's good. That's a positive. But I am excited about talking about this today, where we are, and I'm going to call it the quarter poll. But
I'm so glad, Ian, that you brought up, you did the math, because I just have scribbles on my notepad here trying to do the math, and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to screw this up. So I'm glad that you took the lead on that. So the numbers guy has spoken. We know we're at the quarterway mark of the season. Mike, how give us, it's been a couple weeks. What's been going on in your world?
Yeah, it's good. Almost everyone's playing games now. So we've got through evaluations and development phase. Tournaments have started. I think both at the rep and recreational level, we got teams on the ice playing games or practicing at least. So, I think everyone's back on the ice, ready to rock. It's interesting, like our new seasonal structure at this time, if we were talking a couple of years ago, we'd be at 75% of our season done. And
really?
Because the play downs started so much earlier.
Right.
But yeah, it is funny now that we're talking in middle of November and we're at the quarter poll, not the 3/4 poll.
If the quarter poll,
Yeah, exactly.
No, you've said it. It's locked in there. We're at the quarterway mark right now.
But we're not further is my point. My point is we're not further than that. You know what I mean?
Well, I think just honestly, and Ian, I know we touched on this, last year as well. And obviously it's been a big topic of conversation for us this year, but just the fact how Mike said that, hey, we're at the quarter mark, but on, a previous year we'd be at, they almost have that in itself, I think just speaks to the benefits from a player development side of how the season is now set up.
100%.
Yeah.
I was thinking too, Mike, this little reunion now that we have going on, it's kind of like in the movie The Hangover, where Al and Zach Galifianakis' character brings everybody to the roof and does the Wolfpack speech. I feel like we're becoming a little bit of a team here now on the Breakaway podcast.
But so, hey, Aaron, we are in the terms of and why I said I'm excited about talking about this today is because we did the lead in terms of seasonal structure, and we've been talking about pathways, and so what I think is cool is what we're going to do through this season is do these check-ins. So where are we at this part of the season? We'll have Mike back later, probably on the other side of the holidays, of Christmas, in the new year, before playdowns start, that sort of thing. So we can check in where we are on the pathway. So I agree with what you're saying, and I think we're all going to go through that together and see, and hopefully the people listening, in terms of where their season is, where their team is, where their overall plan is, I know you're out west in BC. The Canucks are having troubles. Leafs, where everybody was off the bandwagon, now they're back on again. So talking about that ups and downs of the season, and does the plan get thrown out after a couple games of maybe not the outcomes you wanted? So that's why I think to follow this pathway and have these check-ins through the season. One, I'm just interested to talk about it because I think it's where rubber hits the road. But two, I think this should also mirror what coaches are doing with their own teams. Where are we at this point in the season? Where did we hope to be? Where are the areas we're going to, we need to address? Where are the areas we're ahead of? Maybe where are the areas we're deficient of? And I know I'm all over the place, but that's why I'm jacked about talking about this, because I think we all live it, right?
For sure. And I think the point that you bring up with, the Leafs and in my case out here, the Canucks, where people get on and off the bandwagon. I think that absolutely happens at the minor hockey level.
Right.
And it's kind of that old adage with Mike Tyson, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And in this case, the face might be your first tournament. It might be your first set of games. And all of a sudden there's like 15 cooks in the kitchen with different opinions on where we should go.
Totally.
And I think it's so important as coaches, as your team managers, as your association and the technical people to say, okay, let's just recalibrate. If we're a little bit off the tracks, let's get back on the tracks, because the plan that we had in August is probably still the right plan. You might move things a little bit, but it's so easy this time of year to all of a sudden say, no, we're going to do a wholesale change and we're going 180 degrees in the other direction. And that's to me, that's where long-term we really do a disservice to the kids.
No, but I agreed. Like a lot of times in our old structure, it would be like September, you'd be focused on where you're going to finish come end of November, early December, so that you're set up for your playoffs. And the focus is immediately on winning games or having success in the regular season standings. I think, now we're still in season, but I think you can still you should always be focused on skill development, but you have a little more time to work on some of those skills that help you play the way you want to play or your style of play, whether it's, you need a little more work on passing or getting pucks through to the net or whatever that is. You don't have to always be spending your time in practices on your style of play. I mean, systems is the word. I hate using it at minor hockey, but that usually tends to be the focuses of teams when it's, jammed in, sprinting to that finish line. Now you have some more time. You can develop those areas, and then you can really settle into how you're playing, what's working for you, and tweaking that, around the holiday season, in the middle of your season.
So I mean, Aaron, I think one really key point there is, and you started us off on this is if you have a philosophy, if you have a plan, you're right. Like if you start if suddenly now your philosophy changes because of a couple bad results, how locked in were we to that philosophy? And two, it just creates doubt for everybody. If now you're changing, kids, no matter how old they are, if you told them last week, this was our focus, and what we believe in, and that can be, beliefs in how you play, values, all that sort of stuff. And now, suddenly it's like you change, that just creates confusion for everybody. And I think it creates difficulty in creating buy-in, quite honestly, because if it's if it's always changing, boy, think about that, in a non-hockey setting, if you're saying that to your employees or to your, people you work with, and it's changing every other week, people don't know where they're at. Right.
Well, I think to that point, I think every coach, and this should be, I think associations should make this as easy as possible for coaches to execute. And in some cases, once it's done once, it should probably be the same year to year, is to have a seasonal plan that is shared with the parents.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably coaches do themselves a real service by sending out a weekly email and say, hey, reminder everybody, we're in whatever vernacular you're going to use. We're in module 1 or phase 1 of the season.
Mm-hmm.
We're working on this. So this is what you're going to see in practice. So the parent doesn't put up their hand and say, well, hey, we gave up, 5 goals on 7 penalty killing opportunities. We should be spending a full hour on the penalty kill. And the coach say, no. Hey, we're going to be okay with that. Everybody needs to be okay with giving up 5 goals. And it doesn't mean we're not going to talk about it and try and, massage it and make it a bit better, but we're still going to show up at Tuesday's practice and work on passing and receiving, or work on our edge work, or work on whatever part we had laid out for the 9-year-olds at the beginning of the season.
Exactly. No, let me throw one more at you, because Mike mentioned style of play and systems, and I personally was a big believer in having a I guess you would call it a defined style of play, or a we would speak to, this is how we want to play. This is how our team will play overall. But we didn't have any systems. It was, you know what I mean? So we didn't slide into that side of it really. We just believed in, and sometimes people, it goes overboard, well, we're a puck possession team, or we want to play fast, that sort of thing. But really everything that we did in practice went to supporting that, not the we got 5 goals against in our PK. It was, to your point, if we're skating well, if we're attacking as 5, defending as 5, we should get better at those things by keeping that in focus, right? So I totally agree with your talking about having that overall plan, and again, plans should be flexible in some respects, right? They're not etched in stone, because you have to determine where you are, like you say, you might be further ahead here, or maybe you've got to back chain it a little bit and say, okay, we missed something at this point. But overall, you're following that plan, right? You're committed to that plan.
Yeah. And so 2 thoughts. One, I think with that plan, there should be an association agreement, I guess, that says, okay, like if let's use passing, receiving again as an example, that says, hey, if you're working on this, if the top 2 players on your team have it all figured out, that's not the benchmark to say that you've invested enough time. Like, we're going to sort of say that, we think that everybody should have a comprehension to this level of how to receive a pass. And we think it's reasonable that, there's always going to be a few kids that maybe need to catch up a bit more, but we need, 3/4 of your team, you need to feel confident that they've kind of acquired this skill or have a good comprehension level before we move on. Like, that's our bet. And if you can get there early, great. But that's when you know that you're ready to move on. And like I said, these are just generalizations. Sure. I think, again, this can be flexible as well, but there should be an appreciation that everybody's on board with that says, hey, this is when we know that these things that we've put as benchmarks in our season, when we've completed them and when it's time to move on to the next. And, when you guys talk about systems, I think this is so interesting. So we've worked a lot with Mike Johnson, who's the coach GM with the Portland Winterhawks. He was, previously head coach with the Penguins, longtime assistant coach, an absolutely brilliant guy and an amazing presenter. So back in, I believe it was 2019, he did a presentation for us in Toronto, and it was all on principles.
Right.
So he said, we're not talking systems here, we're talking principles.
Right.
And it's funny, I hear that word principles now coming up when NHL coaches talk, and the principles would be, hey, we're not going to have we're not going to talk about the forecheck per se, but our principle is that the first forward is going to take a straight line to the puck versus angling the puck to the outside. Or maybe the principle is they're going to angle to the outside and they're not going to go in a straight line, but that's the principle. And so we're just going to teach that piece, and we're not going to worry so much about, the big picture. And his sort of thing was being able to show it in slides to the players. So, if he just hit pause on the video, he could show that principle and everybody kind of got it. Yeah. And maybe that's going in the weeds, but I think that word principles, and again, I don't think teams in minor hockey need like 20 principles. They probably need 4 to 6. And if they can get through those 4 to 6 in a year, then
yeah, I love that word principles. I think, Mike, when you and I coached, we talked about concepts, right? I think that would be kind of interchangeable language. So, yeah. But I think that is the language coaches should be using when they're explaining their seasonal plan. Certainly not only to the players, but you're right about getting buy-in from the parents. And Aaron, your example you gave earlier, as you were saying it, I mean, really, I was thinking, you could have taken out the word hockey and replaced it with school, and taken away, whatever principle, with, that's math, right? So it's like, this is grade 4 math. You're not moving on if only 2 kids in the class are understanding the lesson plan, or the again, that the lesson of the day, right? So I think that's the other approach, you know, we need to take is what are our measurements of success, right? So it's not the wins and losses or the number of goals. It's now, I think over a longer term, I think we'd all like to believe, you know, a sound, you know, development process probably should yield more winning, but that's not the kind of tip of the spear, right? What we're looking to do is, again, provide that that programming that supports where we want to get to, and so I just think, you know, if we think about it as grade 4 math and use the same principles, I think we can simplify it for everybody.
Yeah, and I mean, Ian, we used to talk about that, right? Like our first meeting with players and parents was, here's the skills checklist. Like, here's where you should be right now. And when we come back in 10, 12 months, here's where we want you to be. And that doesn't mean that our practices were skills sessions all season. Like, but we did everything we did incorporated those skills, so that, like, even if it wasn't just like stationary passing or passing, you know, up and down the ice, like we were passing thousands of times in practice to refine that skill, or we were using, you know, when we introduced a saucer pass or whatever, we were using those in situations that the player would use it, refine the skill, they would get to that benchmark by the end of the season. But there was a very linear, direct line from A to B on where we expect you to be at the end of the season.
Yeah, but and the skills checklist becomes the, you know, the report card, you know, or the progress report that you would see at school, right? So, yeah, completely. So the Mike, I guess the question that I have is, you know, going back to the pathways. Teams were back on the ice in September after Labor Day, and then we went into the development phase, right? And that, and so maybe take us back just to that, because I know we talked about it a little bit on our previous chats, but just what were the goals there? And you know, I'll steal the phrase before you even say it, but having that longer runway, you know, before we got into regular season.
Yeah, I mean, I think in one of our previous podcasts, we decided to define it as like the old preseason, like the unofficial preseason of your regular season. But, you know, teams are meeting. Some of them have just gone through evaluations, so they've just formed. Other teams are getting back on the ice together because they had spring evaluations, and they might not have been together much throughout the summer. So they're getting their skates back underneath them. You know, probably a heavy focus on skill development to bring them back up to speed, shake off the rust. They have the opportunity for some exhibition games, so you get some gameplay in before, you know, so you can see where you're at, get your benchmark, see what is working, what might need to be tweaked or like maybe refocused, if we're going to get into that as we get into the regular season. And then lots of practice. You got your team building, so you got your guys getting to know each other, getting comfortable in the dressing room, off ice, what your expectations are. So how, you know, when you arrive to the rink, what does that look like? What is the expectation of timing to get to the rink? What is your function? You know, you look at older guys, they come to the rink prepared, knowing exactly what they're going to do. But when you get to the younger athlete, you know, here's what it's going to look like. You're going to get in the room, drop off your bag. You're going to open it up. Now we're going to go for a team warm up, or whether that's practice or game. So really setting those expectations as a team and what your identity is or your culture is going to be throughout the season, and those, you know, defined roles or rules or expectations, principles, Aaron, that happen not just on the ice, but off the ice, pre-game, post-game, during the game, practice sessions, all those things, and really setting them in stone so that you don't have to worry about them once you get into the regular season.
The Coaches Site is a proud partner of the OMHA along with many of the top development organizations in the world. The Coaches Site was created to provide hockey's top coaches, leaders, and performance experts with a platform to share their experience and insights with amateur coaches and minor hockey organizations with the goal of enhancing the development opportunity for all players. A membership includes access to 500 hours of educational videos, a library of over 700 drills, articles breaking down the latest tactics and systems, and our newly released Initiation Skills Series, which provides a video-based development curriculum for the first 3 years of a player's minor hockey career. Regardless of the level you coach, the Coaches Site is going to provide you the ultimate coaching toolkit. Listeners of the Breakaway Podcast can save 25% off an annual membership by using the code OMHA when they register. Again, use the code OMHA and get registered today. So, Mike, I think that's so interesting. So when you talk about, and when you sort of say that team building aspect, so I guess, you've got the, I'd be curious to know, from a sort of traditional team building, what does that look like in minor hockey? And I think that, I don't know about you guys, I've seen a lot of good creative examples of that. Then there's that sort of team building from a cultural perspective. This is just how we behave and operate around the team. And there might even be a third part where it's like the team building with the parents and, the adults on the team and making sure that there's some alignment and hopefully a little bit of camaraderie there too. But maybe just starting, if we kind of worked in that order from like the team building with the, bringing the group together. Can you give any examples of what you've seen there and stuff that's maybe accessible to most coaches and teams?
I mean, we've done like Ian and I have done stuff just like, we always talked about maximizing our time at the rink. So, not adding additional dates on the calendar, but maybe you're adding 45 minutes or maybe you're adding an hour pre-practice or game or post-practice and game, and you're doing some off-ice training. And, you could, or just workouts together as a group. And those are in forms of, you're working together as teams. We did a lot of handball, Ian and I, off ice with the younger groups. Like we would go practice and then we'd go out to a field and we just play handball within the group. And you'd implement some team functions or principles that we are going to use on the ice. But then the kids are also just naturally forming, coming together, learning how to communicate, work together as a group. A big one here with a lot of our teams is they try to go away. They might try to go somewhere as a group that's away from the rink and do some activities that are team oriented. And then the big one is always usually that first tournament. That's a big one for a lot of our teams that we worked with, is like getting into that first tournament so that you get some social time together, but then you're together for a couple days, constantly getting to know each other and forming.
But Mike, with the longer runway this year, right? Like teams couldn't participate in tournaments until September 30th, right? It was at the end of the month. So you had this period, so you didn't need an immediate result, right? Because the early bird used to be that first Friday of the first week of school. So Aaron, I think I told you this, kids would be missing school the first Friday of school.
Yeah. Because
you were going to an early bird. So all the stuff Mike just talked about with the getting back on the ice, having again, and I'll this will be the most overused term, that longer runway of getting into sync, and then having their, as Mike, you said, I think we could do up to four exhibition games, through that month, through that 25 days or whatever it was, right? And then you could go into a tournament. So to me that takes like, to me, it takes a certain degree of, I don't know if it's pressure, but if you don't have some kind of super result, that first tournament weekend, the first week of school, a stressful time as it is, it just gives you that time to build. Like it's really something. And to be honest with you, it sounds so common sense, Aaron. It's I don't know why it took us so long to figure it out.
Oh man, Ian. So that was just what I was going to say is it's practical. Because I mean, as much as it's with the kids, it's like the team manager. It's extra, like they're just trying to get the rosters. We're trying to get the HCR done, but it's like, oh man, we got this term. We got to get fees. We got pizza after the game. So it just gives everybody a chance. I think it sets everybody up for success. And I think it's that word practical, like just, no, I don't want to beat up on Squamish youth soccer because it's awesome. And, but my little guy's like, he's 3 going on 4. So we got his little U6 soccer.
Yep.
Well, the season started at the beginning of September. And, now because of the weather, we've had to move our practices on Wednesdays indoors. So now we've got practices for the last few weeks that start at 6:15 to 7:00 at night. These are 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. Yeah. And now, like in the wintertime, it's starting to snow. So now we got games on the weekend, and all the parents are like we're good. This should have ended like 8 to 10 weeks was plenty.
Right.
Like, and there's probably the one parent that's like, no, like I want to keep playing soccer or I want to keep playing hockey, or I want to do 2 tournaments in September.
Right.
There's always going to be those, but the most parents that are just they're doing sports as one of the many things they're managing in their life, their family's life. Yeah, September probably makes way more sense. And, kids soccer at, when it's dark out on Wednesdays doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not practical. So 100%, I agree with you. Like what you've described, it just, again, it sets everybody up for success. And I think what you guys touched, I think this is so important. Mike, you said that when you and Ian were coaching together, you didn't want to add any extra trips to the rink in the calendar. And I'm paraphrasing a bit there, but I wrote that down. I think that's so valuable. And I think that, good on you guys for doing that, but a great lesson for coaches to be mindful of that, hey, we're not, you're not in charge of, the New York Rangers. You're in charge of, U16, like, and I think that's probably whether it's the OMHA or associations to put some limits on that, to control that, because I know that I've lived through it as a minor hockey coach. You always have, there's those squeaky wheels, so to speak, with the parents that are like, we should do more dry land. We should another ice. Can we book this? Hey, I can get ice over here. And pretty soon we're catering to that 1% where everybody else is like, hey, we were good with the 2 practices and the games and just having a good time.
You know what it is though, Aaron? It definitely is that, you're combating the more is better, sentiment, right? But we would simply, the idea we had was simply, especially when you only had like a 50-minute practice, right? Like, people are running home from work, pick their kids up, take them to the rink, and it's only 50 minutes. Well, if for all that effort, if we add another 45 minutes, right, we still get the time, right? It's the, now you don't have to rush home, or kids don't have to, put off their homework another night of the week. So that was the big thing to us. And I'll, my Scottish background will come in handy here too. I'm cheap, right? So what we also recognize, and this is, I'll steal this line from Dr. Stephen Norris. As soon as you go inside, costs go up, right? So whatever you're doing, as soon as you go in a rink, in a gym, costs go up. So I mean, we did stuff outside all year. Whether it was when it was nicer, as Mike said, we played a lot of handball, and handball was it's taking the principle of moving the puck, moving to space. That was everything we reinforced. Kids just thought we were playing a game, so they were competitive. Perfect. So we're working on something without them even really knowing it. But we would have kids outside, all year, so like I say, so it's outside. There's no cost. We would bring whatever we needed to bring, and like I say, maximize their time at the rink. Here's the other thing: parents could then drop their kids off. If it's a 50-minute practice, it's not worth going, dropping them off, and trying to do something else. But if they're there for an hour and a half or 2 hours, then they can drop them off, go do something else, come back, and they're good to go. So, there's a certain degree of just kind of being creative and being simple, that's probably the other thing I would suggest. I know the older guys are gonna be in gyms and that sort of thing, but there's lots of ways that again, younger kids are doing. Even if you're doing, we were doing again style of play because through playing games, but if you are doing more kind of dry land stuff, it's really, what is that? That's agility, it's balance, it's coordination. These aren't things you need tremendous amount of equipment for, right? Like
right.
You can jump over
body
anything,
weight stuff,
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's what and that's what I really think this development phase allows. To Mike's point, one, it allows you to spend a little more time doing that stuff. You're not doing it under the the stress of what was our last result, and then I think this allows you to put a lot of that stuff into play, just because you've got that window of time to put it into play. You know what I mean? And I'll throw one more at you. Like, how many coaches practice, your pregame warm up, the actual on ice pregame warm up? And Aaron, I don't know how long you guys get out there, but it'll usually out here, it's anywhere from 3 minutes to 5 minutes, right? The actual on ice pregame warm up.
Yeah.
How many? I know some teams they might do the same one they've ever done, so they know it. But do you ever practice your pregame warm up before your first game, or that sort of thing? So when you get out there for your 3 to 5 minutes, they're the best 3 to 5 minutes you could have. You know what I mean? And I just think there's a and maybe I'm being overly simplistic here, but I think those are the things that allows you to, you can take 15 minutes of practice and really work. Hey, we want this pregame warm up to be, like I say, the best 3 to 5 minutes, we have to set us forward in this game. So, but do teams practice that? I don't know. Some do, some don't. But, I think when you have this window of development phase, these are the sorts of things you can spend some time really putting into place, and that'll benefit you all season.
But Ian, it's those things like I mean, I remember one year we practiced like 5 practices in a row. We started our practice with our pregame warm up before we had played a game. Like every time, like it would be like pucks out, half blue line and below or red line and below. Here it is, and like that was on cruise control. But like we talk about it all the time, being at the rink, like. How can you expect a player or a team to do something if you've never practiced it? So our biggest example is goalie comes out of the net.
Right.
Like team pulls the goalie and everyone is screaming different things at the players on the ice on what should happen. And like you can see the confusion in the players. You can see the confusion on the bench. But like here's an opportunity. You don't have to have a result. Let's practice that in that runway, that 4-week window. We can practice 6-on-5 situations, empty net situations, and you've done it, and kind of, well, at least you've laid the groundwork for the expectation when that situation happens in a game. And the chaos comes out of it. And now, at least if you're saying, hey, get off the wall on this face-off and go to the middle, it's not unfamiliar. The player has been in that situation before. They're like, okay, I know it seems crazy, coach. You've never wanted me to do this in the last 25 minutes, but okay, I'll go to the middle of the ice because it's 6-on-5 and we've practiced it a few times. So it allows for those opportunities for a team to do stuff that they might not have a ton of time to do while they're in season, or they're focusing on the team they're playing the next night or whatever that is. But it gives them time to put their athletes in every situation they might face in a regular season or in a tournament, so that there's some familiarity when that arises.
So our warm-up is tight, looks great because we've worked on that.
Yep.
We've got a tournament under our belt.
Yep.
Done some team building.
Yep.
Probably had some kind of a parents meeting, I think. Now what? What's kind of, if it's Ian's point, we're at the quarterway mark, what are some of the boxes we want to check at the halfway mark?
I mean, we always talked about it. Like Ian and I were never focused on, I guess, regular season results. We were always focused on, and like, where are we going to be at building to play downs, end of season? What will that look like? Like, you might take some lumps along the way, but getting ready for them and refining, if we lose a game, it's okay. It's not going to make or break the year. We probably won't even remember that point of the season that happening, but what are the lessons we can take away from each night and refining? Maybe I don't think now's the time. I know, I mean, the Canucks have done it. The Leafs have done it. You don't need to be juggling lines, making changes to what you're doing all over. Like, that can't be the reaction all the time to solving problems. So, I mean, settling in, ingraining those key principles, concepts, how you want to play, making sure that your foundation is strong so that when we get through it, you're a little more tired. It's a little deeper in the year. Games are getting a little tougher or more meaningful, if you want to use that word, that you can fall back onto what you need to do to be successful as a group and know that, your buddy that's sitting in the corner is going to be doing the same thing or working towards the same goal as you at that time.
You know what I also think of, guys, is again, I would think in previous years, talking about how much of the season would have been done already, we'd almost be in kind of dog days. You know what I mean? Like the clocks just went back. It's darker, Aaron, like you talked about. And if we've played so much hockey already, there's kind of this lull or dog days, before we're close to Christmas, right? But my sense is, again, with the longer runway, regular season starting, anywhere from the beginning of October to the middle of October, really teams are still just kind of ramping up. Like, it's still, you're not in the dog days. And again, that I found as a coach, I think dog days were some of the toughest time, because you were looking for ways to be creative to make it feel different. Right. But I think at this point, I think it's just full steam ahead. You're still just like, everyone's still jacked to be, we're still really in the flow of things. And again, I think the way the season will be broken up this way, I actually think there'll be less dog days, because we'll go right through, over the next month through the, end of November, beginning of January, then, Christmas is around the corner. Like, I don't know if we'll have a lull before Christmas, which I think is a huge benefit.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. And maybe just on the Christmas part too, I'd be interested in to get both your feedback, but I think that having a plan for Christmas, because I get that there's a lot of Christmas tournaments and some of those are like great experiences, but I think it's so important to set some boundaries as a team to say, hey, if we're going to do the Christmas tournament, then maybe we're going to take a little bit of time off before Christmas. But have a plan there and put it on everybody's calendar in advance, so they know, hey, we can organize our holidays, and particularly with families with other kids that are playing sports, that they can sort of,
it's a great point.
The holidays are, they're a great time of year. They can also be a really stressful time of year. Like, give everybody as much opportunity to get their house in order. So they're coming to the rink in a good mindset, not a stressed out mindset.
Yeah, like we coached in an association that held a holiday tournament on the major year. So we knew every other year we were in if you played for us, we had a tournament on the holiday. And in our minor years, it was always our goal. Like, we're not going to do anything. Like, we were busy last holidays. Let's take it off. But like, we usually would break from like Christmas Eve, maybe the 23rd, and we'd come back in the new year if we were off. Like, we would try and not skate between that like 23rd to 2nd, just so that like if we weren't in a tournament, we knew there were not going to be any like scheduled games, so we'd stay off the ice. We might fit in, like we would try and every now and then we would try and rent like an outdoor rink, and it would just be like come play like 3-on-3, 4-on-4, but like
awesome.
Very low key. Like if you can make it, if you want to join us, we're going to be here. Let's do it. But it was not formal in any sense. But I think you're right, Aaron. Being clear with those plans, it's great for families. It's great for the player. They know when they can fit in some other, other activities. Maybe it is some recovery and rest time. Maybe it is they want to go into the gym, because there are guys that like want to do that, but like if families can plan around it too, for sure.
Guys,
well, I already feel like I'm going to need a break after doing Ian's like body weight workout. Like I'm tired as it is. I'm going to.
Oh yeah. You'll love it though. I really find there's a change in mindset here though, with around Christmas. And again, I just through my own two guys experience. I mean, it used to be you had a Christmas holiday tournament every year. Like it was absolute locked in. It was, and again, explaining that to my wife, that was just, that came with the territory, and you'd have your family dinner maybe on the, Christmas, but then maybe Boxing Day with your in-laws or whatever, you know what I mean, or what have you, or with your other side of your family. But then it was like, can't do anything other, because we got hockey on the 27th, and so as Mike said, I with my younger guy, definitely saw a bit of a change there, and there were some big tournaments, Aaron, as you said, some big ones, especially at certain age groups, certain levels. But I think, we got to the point where we were aiming to have Christmas as a downtime. Now maybe if it's a house league team who's playing, who has a kind of, maybe didn't get started until, well through October, and maybe maybe a holiday tournament is a big part of their season. So they've identified that as something they really want to do, you know what I mean? So, but
it's in advance. Everybody knows
totally.
It's on
the, I really sense a change there. And as Mike said, this goes along with like early in the season doing stuff off ice, handball, where we're same, we're trying to ingrain these principles, but doing it in a different setting. So it doesn't feel like you're always at the rink. So yeah, Mike's right. We would rent this little pad that was, it was outside ice, but we try and do it, I think twice in the colder months,
depending
right?
on the weather.
So, and Mike says it's low key and, come out if you want. Kids loved it. They're coming with the
kids had a blast.
Oh, yeah. They're coming with the black under the eyes. Like it's the Winter Classic. We're, like, call it as it is, Mike. Never lost. Just saying.
Yeah.
We did keep scoring.
I would say like
3-on-3 specialist.
Oh, low key probably might not be the term. Informal, so that you, like, if you couldn't do it because you had your holiday dinner on the date, it wasn't the end of the world that you were missing this event, I guess is the way to go. I know Ian would ramp it up. You'd be out there sticking my hands all the time, like right through me. But yeah, but I think, Ian, this runway allows for teams to plan their events, their tournament events around the holidays. Like, I mean, in the old way, you'd have your regular season done before Christmas break, and teams would still be fitting 3 or 4 tournaments in that 3-month window now, and they wouldn't have a tournament after the holidays because we'd be in the play down. So now teams might not necessarily have to have that Christmas tournament.
That's a great
because
point.
they can go in January or they can go in February because we're still in the regular season phase. We can fit an extra weekend in that two extra months we have for regular season. You know what,
Aaron? That's a massive change. Mike's totally right. And
that's huge. Bro.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
And it's funny. Like it's funny from my perspective because out here, there's a huge, like, we have Family Day. Well, Family Day, the long weekend in February, is a huge tournament weekend.
Oh, wow.
Like, I would say you got Thanksgiving in October. You have Remembrance Day, which is coming up now, and Family Day. Those are probably our three biggest tournament weekends in Western Canada for minor hockey.
And it's funny you say that. Like, again, old seasonal structure. We'd have teams that were done on Family Day weekend.
Yeah.
Now everyone's still playing that, right? And like we could have a Family Day tournament. So like it puts things into perspective, just how this shift in delaying competition right up at the up front and allowing players to play more gives some more flexibility in the schedule. It's not as taxing. Like all
we'll
that
have
stuff.
everyone through the March break now, as opposed to like Mike saying like February 11th or something, or whatever Family Day is. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy.
Well, I think, what's great is through this conversation, because obviously, Ian, you and I talked about this a lot last year, and I shared my perspective of just how kind of hockey's administered out here on the West Coast.
Yeah.
But like, I think it's so refreshing that the conversation is, hey, this is working. We're going in a good position. And again, just identifying from a development perspective, but I think just overall is, the experience that all, players, coaches, parents, everybody has, it sounds like it's enhanced, which is awesome. So I'm going to try and do so. I take a lot of notes. They're not necessarily legible, but I do take a lot of notes throughout these conversations. I'm going to try and put a bow or recap on everything we've talked about. These are Aaron Wilbur's takeaways, breakaway takeaways.
Nice.
I like that.
That's
breakaway takeaways.
That's hashtag.
Yeah, totally. So the first one is, if I'm a coach or a team manager or anybody involved in the association, is look at your season. Let's try and create experiences. Like it shouldn't always be about winning. It shouldn't always be about the skill development. All that matters, but how can we create experiences, whether that's at the tournaments, the 3-on-3, the handball. And, I'll give you an example. Years ago, I coached Pee Wee for the first time, and we did, year-end interviews or whatever. We went to the Quebec Pee Wee tournament. The highlight of the tournament, granted, we're on the West Coast, we don't have a lot of outdoor rinks. The highlight for the kids was they got to play outdoor hockey in Quebec. It wasn't the Quebec tournament. It was that they got to go outside.
Our guys did the same, Aaron.
Yeah, and it's so I would say try and create these sort of unique experiences. And second, it's I love. I'm going to go back to it again. Let's not create extra visits to the rink. So be really mindful of everybody's schedule. And if you're a coach out there listening and you're not married and you don't have kids, acknowledge that your lifestyle, your schedule is vastly different than the families that are on your team, right? So be mindful of that. Two, I think that at this quarterway mark, it's also a great opportunity. This is when you should be doing goal setting. Goal setting shouldn't happen before you know what you got. This is when you can do your goal setting. And you might have the 67 Leafs, but you might have the 2016 Leafs too. And that's what you got. And particularly for, associations that are in small centers where you don't have a lot of, big pool of kids to draw from, this is a chance where you can have a really, get all the parents in a room and say, look, everybody, to nobody's fault, we don't have probably a talent pool to go out and win provincials or win the OMHAs. That's okay. So here's our goals for the year. This is what we're going to try and accomplish this year, but let's recalibrate and manage expectations. And I think going back to, the fourth point, going back to where we started, it's all about planning. And this is where it's a chance to bring everybody in that same meeting. Everybody say, hey, remember that in September, the seasonal plan we showed, and what we're going to look at it again. So just on everybody's on the same page. We're not doing a tournament at Christmas. We already said we weren't. We're already, we said we were going to be working on edges this time of year. Still working on edges, even though the penalty kill sucks. But we're all going to live with that. And anyways, those are my breakaway takeaways for today. That I think, Aaron,
I love the breakaway takeaways, and I would just, the one thing I would add, and I like Mike's language around, around kind of assessing where we are. So as you said, not just using the standings as the only barometer of success, and going back to that skills checklist and the language Mike used, identifying some areas where we're introducing, a new skill, but then in other areas where we're refining, a skill we've already been working on. And I think when you can take it back to that and actually show, the players and the parents that checklist and where we are and where the when we were in September and we were just introducing this skill, now we're in, December or January, and we've refined this one. So we're introducing this new skill, so it just takes it away. And it's a constant reminder of we're building and we're growing. And, when you see the kids 4 times a week, you don't see that incremental improvement, but then someone, your friend or your neighbor, or, they haven't seen the kids in a month, say, and they go, boy, they've really improved. And you're kind of like, oh, you think so? You can see this, you can go back to your checklist and go, yeah, I guess we have been doing this,
Ian, I honestly, as you're talking, I think you've just stumbled on I don't know if you stumbled on it because you've been doing this a while, but if I'm listening to this right now, and as I'm listening to you, I'm like, that should be part of every coach's seasonal plan, especially with this added runway, is to say,
sure,
pick something earlier in the year that you're going to intentionally go back at the quarterway mark and say, hey, remember our plan, everybody? We said we were going to work on this. Well, maybe it's through video, maybe it's through, hey, watch these drills we're going to practice, but create a visual representation of how you've improved as a team. And I think that's going to apply. Cool. And so, like, I've never done that before, but I'm going to do it now. The next time I see seasonal plan, cool. We're going to pick something that intentionally we're going to show everybody the improvement to say, hey, this is, regardless of what our record is, we're making some good progress. So, Mike, anything to put a bow on this?
No, I love it. I love that you're taking the notes and dropping dimes. It's good. It's good.
I love it. Well, hey, and last thing here, let's hope that for everybody's sake here in our respective hockey markets, that the Leafs and Canucks get their what together, so we get some positive vibes. Because there's some black clouds out here, let me tell you. But guys, this has been a lot of fun. Glad we did this, and let's. I think these are, to Ian's point earlier, I think these are so valuable. Let's make sure we do this again at the halfway mark.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Right, boys, and everybody out there, hope you are having a great season, and remember to there's a lot of we had a long runway. There's a lot of runway left. Make sure you enjoy it, and make sure you hook up those experiences that make minor hockey as special as we know it is.